Hey everybody, happy deadline day. I'm Steve Dangle. In a tie. It's strange. I'm sure we're going to get to a bunch of trades today before the 3 o'clock deadline, but let's start with what happened last night that you might have missed. We'll start with the minor stuff and then we'll build up. First, I love weird, and this one's weird, okay? So you're going to have to bear with me. Nick Baptiste is traded from the Nashville Predators to the Toronto Maple Leafs in exchange for future considerations. It's a shame. I really liked him on the Leafs. So here's what makes that trade interesting. A couple minutes after this trade was confirmed, it was confirmed that the Toronto Marlies traded a player named Emerson Clark to the Predators' AHL affiliate, the Admirals. So in essence, what happened is the Predators traded a player, Nick Baptiste, on an NHL contract playing in the AHL to the Leafs in exchange for a player on an AHL contract playing in the ECHL. Are you still with me? I know it's kind of weird, it probably doesn't mean anything, but interesting little wrinkle nonetheless. Another minor one, but also interesting, the Anaheim Ducks send Brian Gibbons to the Ottawa Senators in exchange for defender Pat Sailoff. Now, that one's interesting for a couple reasons. In the 15-16 season, Sailoff, a former second-round pick, was called up by the Calgary Flames. And he scored, and that was the only game he played. Last season, he was called up by the Ottawa Senators for one game, and he scored. If the Ducks call him up, I'm just saying it might happen. But this was a fascinating one because you often see when a player gets traded, no matter how good or bad he was, there's a little bit of sentimentality to it, and the fan base goes, "Oh, I'm sorry to see you go." That's not what I saw on Twitter at all. A big chunk of the Sens fan base was like, bye, don't let the door hit you on your way out, or maybe do. Most of the animosity that Sens fans have towards this player has to do with a few years ago during training camp, Clark MacArthur just coming back from injury, and Sailoff blows him up. Then he had to get into a fight. Reminder that this game was the Senators versus the Senators. Poor form, and a lot of people don't like that, and people don't forget. I'm a bit surprised this player wasn't moved sooner. I mean, he still had lots of potential, but this is a good opportunity for him. A nice fresh start in Anaheim. And then there's Brian Gibbons, who gets, I'm sure he's going to play a bunch in Ottawa after the fire sale that's going to happen today and has happened over the last week. He's a 30-year-old, could rejuvenate his NHL career. Now this was a big one and unexpected. Brandon Montour going from the Ducks to the Buffalo Sabres in exchange for a first-round pick, although we're not sure which one, and prospect Brendan Goalie. So Goalie is a 21-year-old left-handed defenseman. He's putting up okay numbers in the AHL. Like, this guy could be a player. Not to mention the first-round pick could obviously be a player. The first-round pick does not belong to Buffalo. A lot of people were wondering that because Buffalo is currently not in a playoff spot. Are they seriously going to give up their own first-round pick? The draft pick will either come from San Jose, and the Sabres got that pick because of the Evander Kane trade last year, or it'll come from St. Louis, that being from the Ryan O'Reilly trade in the summer. The big get there is Brandon Montour, and it's interesting because there were some Twitter rumblings about maybe Rasmus Ristolainen is on his way out of town. What? That came out of nowhere too. And now they get another young right-hand shot defenseman. Does that make that trade more or less likely? Also, a lot of debate as to whether or not he's even good. I saw some people say his underlying numbers stink. Some people say his underlying numbers are great. I know the Sabres are hoping he's the former because, well, they gotta make the playoffs still. They're within arm's reach, 6 points out, they can make it. And last but not least, I'm surprised that this isn't getting more play. Gustav Nyquist going from the Detroit Red Wings to the San Jose Sharks. In return for Nyquist, Detroit gets a second-round pick in 2019 from the Sharks and a conditional third-round pick in 2020 from the Sharks, but the condition is that pick turns into a second if the Sharks make it to the Stanley Cup final or if Nyquist resigns. And that's a deal that you're willing to make if you're Detroit because last year they made the same sort of conditional deal, only it was a second going to a first with Evander Kane. Sure enough, Buffalo ended up getting the first, which allowed them to make the Montour deal. It's all connected. This deal should really be talked about more. Nyquist maybe hasn't put up the most monstrous numbers this year, but who on Detroit really has? They're going through sort of a rebuild there. San Jose? No, they're not. With the Nyquist deal, they strengthen a strength. The Sharks are already second in the NHL in goal scoring, behind Tampa, but everybody's behind Tampa. And I was going to say that's it, but no, breaking trade just as we're shooting this video. The New Jersey Devils send goalie Keith Kincaid to the Columbus Blue Jackets in exchange for a 5th-round pick. I'm a little bit surprised that he only fetched a 5th-round pick because so many teams have been starved for goaltending this season. Granted, Keith Kincaid hasn't exactly provided that for New Jersey this season, But, sort of like I said with the last trade, New Jersey's having a down year. It hasn't been fun. On Columbus and in a reduced role, he could be pretty good for them. Now, I was going to extrapolate on that and be like, does this mean a Bobrovsky trade is coming? After all the additions they've made so far, I'm not going to hold my breath. It might just be a team that's going all in, shoring up a position. That's smart. So that is it for this one. Thank you very much for watching. Click like if you liked this video. Click subscribe if you really liked it. Tell all your friends that we're going to have a lot more videos today on account of, it's the trade deadline. I don't know if you knew that.